The most serene Republic of Venice faced big economic trouble in 1504. Lisbon was becoming the new European center of the spice trade. The prices of spices in Egypt, Venice's usual source, were increasing, due to Portuguese trade and piracy in the Indian Ocean, and spice merchants were leaving Venice due to even higher prices. Since they couldn't sail around the Cape of Good Hope due to fears of renewed Ottoman aggression, the proud and cunning Venetian merchants did the only thing they could. They all but groveled before the Egyptian Sultan, begging him to reduce prices. They even offered to build a canal that would connect the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. The Sultan said no. Since the Venetians weren't buying as much anymore, he saw no reason to oblige them. So for the first time in centuries, the Venetian spice fleet came back from Egypt empty. The Venetians hoped that the situation would fix itself and they could avoid buying spices from the Portuguese. But things only got worse. By 1507, Portugal had attained control of Socotra and Hormuz at the entrances to the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, further redirecting trade to their own trade ports and around the Cape. Not only that, the Portuguese also began to proactively sell spices at other European ports, meaning that many merchants no longer had to travel and pay extortionate fees to conduct trade in other cities, like Venice. Still, Venice held out some hope that they could avoid bowing to the Portuguese spice monopoly. Venice had economic security thanks to its recently expanded terra firma in northern Italy. It had grown the territory mostly through diplomatic cunning, while others thought Venice expanded at minimum cost to itself, which was noticed. In early 1508, King Maximilian von Habsburg of Germany demanded safe passage through Venetian territory in order to be crowned emperor by Pope Julius II in Rome. Venice, suspecting that Maximilian was bringing more than just a small entourage, refused. Pope Julius then sent a document to Maximilian declaring him to be the emperor sans coronation, breaking centuries of precedent. The Venetian refusal caused the war, which cost Maximilian Trieste. But either through Venetian diplomatic bungling or inevitability, other interested parties soon joined the war to cut Venice down to size. In late 1508, Pope Julius, King Louis XII of France, King Ferdinand II of Aragon and now Naples, Emperor Maximilian I, and other Italian polities formed the League of Cambrai against Venice. It is said that when the Venetian ambassador to Rome was given the declaration of war, Pope Julius said, "We will turn Venice into a fishing village." To which the Venetian ambassador replied, "And we will turn you into the village priest." For all the diplomatic bluster, the war turned catastrophic for Venice. In fact, it was effectively lost after the Venetian defeat at the Battle of Agnadello on the 14th of May 1509. As news spread of the defeat, Venetian control of terra firma collapsed. Retreating Venetian soldiers were not allowed into their own cities and fortifications anymore. The patrician councils across terra firma declared independence or allegiance to either King Louis or Emperor Maximilian. Venice itself was in a panic, preparing for a siege. But suddenly, something completely unexpected happened. The commoners and peasants of the Venetian terra firma rose up in arms, and with the shouts of "Marco, Marco," attacked the invading soldiers, and with the help of Venetian forces they put their own cities under siege, and demanded that the patrician councils remain loyal to Venice, which they acquiesced to. This miracle allowed Venice to regain control of much of terra firma very quickly, and Venice itself was saved. One explanation as to why the lower orders did this was that they believed that their lives would only get worse if their patricians were no longer subject to Venetian regulation and administration. This unusual series of events bought Venice time and allowed it to pursue a course of frantic concessionary diplomacy. They appeased the King of Aragon in Naples by giving him the Apulian ports they acquired in 1495. The Pope had also grown worried about the strong French presence in Italy, so Venice offered to return the territories it had taken in Papal Romagna in exchange for an alliance against France. But at the same time as Venice was turning its diplomatic situation around, Emperor Maximilian was trying to convince King Wladislav II to join the League against Venice. Wladislav had the opportunity to take Dalmatia from Venice, and was told that if he didn't, Maximilian would. The problem was that Wladislav was on the fence, as was his royal council. A war with Venice, though seemingly beneficial, would draw resources away from the Ottoman front, and put an end to any aid that Venice was giving Władysław's realm. The decision was thus put to the Diet. In 1510, when the geopolitical situation in Italy had drastically altered, and the Pope was now allied with Venice against France. At the Diet, Cardinal Baccac led the pro-Venetian side. He was allegedly assured that Venice would support him at the next papal election if he quashed the war effort. The pro-Venetian side pointed to the fact that Venice was financing the anti-Ottoman defense, and that it made far more strategic and ideological sense to join forces against the Ottomans instead of participating in a war that would weaken everyone. There was also the fact that the peace with Sultan Bayezid was about to run out in 1510, and Ottoman incursions were expected. The most vocal on the anti-Venetian side was cleric and royal secretary Peter Berislavich of Trogir, who despised Venetian rule over his hometown. He urged on the war, saying that right now, with Venice on the back foot, all they needed to do was send a small army to knock on the door of the coastal communes, and they would all simply surrender to King Wladislav. The Diet in the end decided by a small majority in favor of the war against Venice. King Wladislav appointed commanders for the war effort, among whom were Croatian noble Ivan Karlović and the new voivode of Transylvania Janos Zapolja, both of whom had distinguished themselves in service on the border. But despite all that, there seems to have been no war effort. This was due to either no money being allocated towards it, or because the nobility, especially the Croatian nobility, refused to go to war with Venice. They wanted to focus on the Ottoman border. Venice and its ally the Pope had for years now been providing for the Croatian defense. Ivan Karlović himself received money from Venice as a condottieri. Even nobles that had interests to attack Venice, like Bernardin Frankopan, who wanted to take back his old familial possession of Krk, was far more concerned about the Ottoman threat. He did, however, allow his son to fight in Emperor Maximilian's armies in the slim hope that Krk could be returned that way. This whole situation appears to have ignited strong sentiments among the Croatian nobility, as some even floated the idea of ending the union with Hungary and pledging loyalty to either Venice or Maximilian. So in the end, Cardinal Baccac was able to inform the Venetians that there would be no war, and asked Venice to continue providing funds for the Ottoman front, while Peter Berislavich was dispatched to explain to Emperor Maximilian why King Wladislav was not actually going to war. Fortunately, the geopolitical situation had shifted once again during this time, and Maximilian was soon fighting with Venice and the Pope against the King of France. After facing almost certain doom in the War of the League of Cambrai and the loss of some of its mainland possessions, Venice soon relented and began buying spices from the Portuguese. So I spent 2 episodes of a series about King Wladislav II of Bohemia, Hungary and Croatia talking about the early Italian wars, and the apparent conclusion is that nothing of relevant consequence happened. Well, yes, but things could have happened. And there is still more to this story.